Welcome to the Backfield Buzz podcast, a part of the Hive Podcast Network. Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, and it turns out Andrew Foster is back with us. No more Nick Frias. We kicked him off. Solid performance, but maybe we'll call him back down the line. But regardless, we are here. Fantasy start sittums for week six. Week six, fellas. Gosh, almost a third of the way down the season. It feels like it just started. We got some best bets today as well. And then we'll canvas the whole league as well for some other stuff. But Glover, how you doing? You're in a different location.
Yeah, different setting this time around, back home for Thanksgiving weekend, it's Canadian Thanksgiving weekend that is, because the States still got the big football weekend coming up. So yeah, different location. It was a little weird trying to find a setup where the light wasn't so funky in the background. I didn't have like my face was all black and darked out because there was a big old window behind me, so it took a second here to figure this out.
Well, Frosty, you missed the last episode, but you're back now. So how are you doing? You were away as well.
Yeah, I was away, had a little anniversary vacation, so I couldn't risk Nick ruining the record though. I'm still number one on the leaderboard right now by a technicality, so
Yeah, it's
I'm I couldn't risk him losing the record.
Well, I'm in the same old spot, same old everything. I'm here. So don't you worry. Yeah, let's start with these start sits. And Frosty, you just brought up the record. I'm sitting at 16 and 14. You're at 16 and 13, going back to what was that, week two with Ken Walker, who
yeah.
Yeah.
so and Glover bringing up the rear at 12 and 18. Though he had a good week last week. Tied with me for the best week as well. So all right, let's begin with the RBs. And we were money last week, fellas, on RBs.
Oh yeah.
6 for 6 for us. We all had great starts. We all had great sits. Glover, you're bringing up the rear. So let's start with you. Who are you starting at running back this week?
My start's gonna be Chase Brown. I mean, this guy is just watching him play against the Ravens last week, a good run defense, one of the best in the league. And he ran really, really well in limited work. He had less snaps than Zach Moss, but more touches, more carries, especially. And he was so much more explosive. Like I look at him, he is a better running back than Zach Moss. Moss also was coming into the week questionable. He has a foot injury, he didn't practice today on Thursday. So who knows if he's even going to play. Even if he does play, Chase Brown still might start because a rough defense in the New York. I don't know how well they'll be able to play. I think the Bengals could get up early and look to run it, but Chase Brown's just so explosive. He's averaged over 3.5 yards a carry every game this season and is just a really good running back right now.
Yeah, I have Chase Brown as my start too. I think this is going to be a game where Cincinnati's going to be up on the Giants, even though the records might not show that. But I think Chase Brown's going to get a lot of usage, and the goal line usage is the main thing that he's really outperformed Zach Moss in. He gets one touchdown, and it's a good chance. It's a good start for him. So I like starting Chase Brown against the Giants. I think he gets into the end zone there.
Yeah, the one concern with me for Chase Brown is just the snap percentage, but like you mentioned, Glover, if Moss is out, then that should spike up a little bit because he hasn't seen over 40%. But he's been pretty efficient in the last 2 weeks, and according to our start sit model, which is over 10 points or not, he's crushed it. So I'm not going Chase Brown. Plus, he's Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, so maybe he has a little extra pep in his step. For me though, I'm starting Tony Pollard. I'm not going to trifecta. We saw how that worked for us last week. Not very good. Of course, it's Kyle Pitts that burned us last week. But yeah, I'm starting Tony Pollard. Indy has just been surprisingly abysmal against the run this season. They're allowing the fourth most rushing yards in the NFL, top 10 in fantasy points allowed to RBs, too. And Pollard's production has been there outside of one game against the Packers. He's been running the ball efficiently, and he's shown the ability to find the end zone, which is something that is obviously valuable when it comes to fantasy. He gets the receiving work. And I thought coming into the year, Tajay Spears would have more of a role, but it hasn't really materialized to that quite yet. So give me Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I like Pollard. I looked at Pollard a lot because of the matchup is really, really favorable for him because the Colts can't defend the run at all. And he surprised me. Like I really thought I was hoping almost more so that Tajay was just going to take over and control that backfield, but he hasn't really done that. So Pollard's still a lead guy there.
Yeah, he's getting averaging almost 20 touches a game right now. I
Yeah.
mean, and against a defense like this, like the production's gonna be there for him, I expect.
Yeah, and I don't think like either team's really going to be like up crazy in this one either. So you would think most both teams should stay pretty balanced. All right, Frosty, who are you sitting?
I'm sitting Brian Robinson against Baltimore this week. He's been a fantasy darling so far this year. He's been unreal. But Baltimore's defense is just so good. I think this is going to be the week where Washington's offense might come crashing back down to earth against this Baltimore defense. I don't think they're going to be able to establish the run. I think Baltimore is going to force Jaden Daniels to beat them through the air. No team's going to know how to game plan better for a rushing quarterback than Baltimore is. And I don't think they're going to let Washington beat them on the ground. They've been the best run defense in football all year, even after Chase Brown's game yesterday. So Brian Robinson's been unreal to start the year, but I'm getting him on the bench this game.
I once again I'm in the same boat. I'm sitting Brian Robinson. We're going the same RBs this week. That's who I was planning on sitting all the way through. And yeah, like you said, the Ravens' run defense has been excellent, and that front seven is just an elite run stopping front seven. They get in the backfield really quick. They're able to blow through the interior. And the other big thing is I think this game's gonna be a shootout. I think it's gonna be 35-40. Like it's gonna be an absolute shootout. You're not going to be able to just pound the rock with Brian Robinson to keep up in this game because neither defense has performed very well, especially through the air. So I think it's just going to be them, Jane Daniels and Lamar. As much as we want to see him run around and see that battle that way, I think they're both just going to be slinging it downfield against these secondaries that just have underperformed so far this year. And the other thing is Brian Robinson last week had 13 points. He was terrible. Like that's the weakest 13 points ever because he had two goal line touchdowns that he snagged from Jane Daniels after all Schneckler got them all the way down there. He had 7 carries for 18 yards. I don't know. That just wasn't that great of a showing, and he's also questionable heading into the week, a little banged up. It's expected to play as far as I'm aware, but yeah, I think this is just a bad matchup for Brian Robinson, but not necessarily the Commanders as a team.
You guys are riding the RBs together. Okay. Yeah, questionable coming in. So Dirty Dogs.
I will say if Brian Robinson doesn't play, I would still sit Austin Eckler.
That's I was yeah. I'll
All
well
right.
I think that's fair. Like
Okay, so we're stepping that. If Robinson doesn't
if
play,
Robinson doesn't play
you guys
Eckler.
shift over to Eckler. All
Yeah.
right. All right. I started this guy last week. I'm sitting Chuba Hubbard. The Canadian. Lots of Canadian love on this too. Hubbard being Canadian as well. Um, yeah, it's tough because honestly, he's been pretty good the last 3 weeks. And in all honesty, he's probably more of a flex play than anything than a sit. But I'm gonna roll with it. Atlanta is allowing the fourth fewest rushing yards to RBs, and they've only allowed one TD to running backs as well. I'm pretty sure this game's gonna get out of hand. I think Atlanta's gonna handle them pretty much like every other team has handled Carolina. And I'm not sure how much Hubbard will actually be running the ball as the game goes on. I'm sure he'll get a decent workload in the first half, but I'm worried for the longevity of Hubbard. We could see it regress back to what weeks 1 and 2 were looking like for Hubbard. So yeah, that's the reasoning for Hubbard, even though he's been super solid and he's all the way up to RB7 now.
It's crazy. That's crazy that Chuba Hubbard's the RB7 right now. But yeah, he's been lights out these past few weeks. But yeah, as long as the Panthers keep getting blown out, like it's surprising he was able to hit 17 and a half points last week because they were just dead in the water from the first quarter on. So if they keep getting blown out, it's just not going to be a game, a scheme where they can run the ball. They're just not going to be in that kind of game plan.
I mean,
Yeah,
he had that long run for the touchdown, which I
Right.
think is what really gave
Yeah.
it to him.
yeah, that was exactly what I was going to bring up. Is without that explosive play, it really wasn't that great of a week for him. So
Yeah.
I do agree. I think he could be like a low end flex play with the bye weeks that are going on because there's a lot of good teams on buys this week, but I wouldn't have your hopes very high for him.
All right, wide receivers. And who's been our wide receiver guy? At least last week. I guess we all did the exact
We all
same
did
one
the
and
exact
one
same.
for wide receivers. So Frosty, wide receiver, who
I,
you starting?
First of all, I want to stand on that Worthy sit because he had 3 receptions. It was a rushing touchdown that got him it.
You know what?
I still think that was a good sit.
I don't care because I played against Worthy and that stupid ass rushing touchdown lost me my week by like. So I that's an X in my book. I'm not
Fair,
giving that.
fair enough. Fair enough. Um, I'm starting Jalen Tolbert this week, against the Lions. Last week he had 10 targets, 7 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. The Lions have given up over 250 pass yards a game through the air. Dak Prescott's throwing the ball more than anybody else in football right now because the Dallas Cowboys have no run game. So the volume's going to be there for him. I like the matchup against the Lions secondary. I think the Lions will probably have the lead pretty early on in this game, so I think the Cowboys are going to have to throw the ball too. I think Tolbert's just going to get a bunch of targets, especially a bunch of deep balls.
Yeah, Total was a guy I was considering for sure. I think the Lions secondary, like their run defense has been amazing, and the Cowboys can't really run the ball much in general. It's just going to force them to pass. As you said, they're going to be down early. Jalen Tolbert should be a monster as he's kind of like solidified himself as the wide receiver two with Brandon Cooks out.
I'm worried how many targets like Ferguson's going to take away from Tolbert because it's really Ferguson seems to be like the second
Yeah.
option. But I mean Tolbert at least last week Tolbert was getting it involved too. Same with Cavante Turpin. So um, for me, hey, Frosty went with his guy. I'm going with my guy. I'm starting Tank Dell. It's tank week. I'm hoping it should finally be tank time. Uh, Nico Collins on IR, and honestly, tank's been pretty disappointing this season. Which I guess it was hard to say that all three of these guys in Houston were really going to have good years. Unfortunately, Tank is the one that has kind of been suffering. Was hurt 2 weeks ago. He was back last week. Did a little something, something, but this week I think it's going to be Tank time. Gonzalez should be on Stephon Diggs more often than not, allowing Tank to, be a bit more free and do his thing. He has the big playability, and now that Nico is gone, who just dominates the middle deep part of the field and just overall anywhere deep, Tank did a lot of that last season as well. So I would assume Tank's gonna get some sideline deep balls. That's where he was great last season. So and Houston's gonna need him. And they should still be pass happy. Mixon practiced today, or sorry, he practiced yesterday or today, but it's his first practice since he got hurt. Still don't think he's gonna be back. They're gonna want to throw the ball, and it's going to be against a team that is top 10 in allowing receiving yards to wideouts. So tank time, baby.
Yeah, that's the other guy I was gonna like. I had three guys. One was Jalen Tolbert. Two was Tank Dell. My third one, I'm going Wan'Dale Robinson. Because he's just been a target monster this year. Like week one, he had 12. Week two was his worst week. He had 4 targets, but he still got in the end zone that week. But then he had 8 targets, 14 targets, 9 targets, playing a Cincy defense that just really struggles. And especially if the Giants fall down early, gonna have to air it out. That'll be Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, who, yeah, he's just a PPR machine. Like he doesn't get a lot of yards. He's not averaging a ton of yards per catch, but it doesn't matter because he's getting 7 catches a game with the way Daniel Jones is chucking these checkdowns over to him. And he's also been able to find the end zone a little bit this season, but I really like Wandale like rest of season, but I think he's a good start this week against the Cincy defense.
Yeah, yeah. The Cincy defense got exposed again by Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. It got exposed by Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. I think Wan'Dale Robinson could be in for a massive game.
Can we all agree that the problem with this Bengals team is the defense? Like,
Oh,
I believe,
absolutely.
I think, did the players have a meeting or something heading into this week? I believe I saw because the offense is putting up numbers, honestly. The
Oh yeah.
offense looks really good, especially with this RB tandem, who I think has been underrated. So yeah, they need to figure it out because what, 1-4 for Cincinnati? So yikes. Should have been 2-3, but
Hey, a choke's a choke. A choke's a choke. Now it's the defense. I mean, the offense looks really good, especially like the first couple of weeks, the offense was kind of rough. But like once T. Higgins was healthy and Jamar Chase was a little more comfortable in the offense and he got into
for
that mode,
sure.
it's just been lights out so far. But this defense can't stop anything, like literally anything.
Yeah. O-line's been holding up too. They've invested
Yeah.
in that. I can't get over last week how the primetime games shook out and then what the 1 p.m. slate looked like. I mean, Glover, we were
Oh
doing
my God.
backflips watching the Texans, Ravens, and the FanDuel and Red Zone up, uh, just doing backflips, figuring out what's going on, looking everywhere. So,
Running in
and then
circles.
to watch this delayed primetime game, and it was. All right. Sitting wide receivers, we all were wrong sitting. It was interesting. We all went 1-on-1 and we all got our starts right. All sat wrong. So maybe better luck this week, Glover, who you trying to turn your fortunes around with?
I was really struggling to find like a sit guy that's like for this week, there's a sit guy that isn't just a regular sit and is a guy you could actually start and people might actually be considering. I'm going with Khalil Shakir. If he's back from injury this week, which he should be, because I was shocked he didn't play last week. But he's just got a rough matchup. This Bills offense has been a little rough around the edges in general, and playing the Jets defense, which regardless of what you think of the Jets, the defense has been pretty good this year. He's as the wide receiver one, he's going to get a lot of matchups with Sauce Gardner. DJ Reed will be over on him a lot. They got a really, really good secondary there. And also, if the Jets don't come into this game with a fire under their ass and don't play some of the best football they've ever played, especially on defense, because the defensive guys are the ones that are really losing Salah. If they don't play with that extra juice, that pump up, then kiss the season goodbye. As even though it's probably already goodbye, but kiss it even further goodbye because they need a prove it game this week, and I think the defense should step up and be able to lock down a guy like Shakir.
Yeah, I think the Jets are going to come in and play, like you said, like at least the best football they've played all
Yeah.
season, probably the best football they played in the last 2 or 3 years. I do think they're going to come in absolutely on fire.
Man, what a turn of events it would be if the Jets won. Bills, three straight losses. It'd be cinema.
Well,
Cinema.
that's part of the reason that like sometimes when you really look at the situation the Jets are in, it's a little confusing with the firing because really they are in reach of that division because the Dolphins have been terrible and who knows how far they'll fall before Tua gets back. Obviously, the Patriots are no worry, and you beat the Bills this week and you're first in the division. Like, that's kind of crazy.
Well, I'm not sure if you guys saw the drama just keeps coming up. We were talking a little bit about it with Nick last episode, but I guess the firing hat Saleh had already stated that he wanted to get rid of Hackett, and then they fired Saleh moments later. So,
But now they took play calling away from Hackett. Ulrich took the play calling away from Hackett and gave it to the QB coach and the pass game coordinator. So yeah, I don't know what's going on in New York, man.
well, we'll
I
see
think
what.
I think they might be starting to prepare to get rid of Hackett too. They just don't want to get rid of their entire coaching staff in the middle of the season.
Which is
It's
why
not
you
even the middle of the season. We're
it's,
not even a
yeah,
third of
That's
the
not
way
gonna be fun.
through.
that's why you should have gotten rid of if your interim head coach's first move was to take play calling away from your OC, you probably should have just fired your OC and kept your head coach, who's a defensive head coach. Like, it's not like Salah had any responsibility with running that offense. Like, obviously, the typical head coaching responsibilities. He's not doing the schemes. He's not picking the plays. He's not calling the plays. Fire Hackett and let Salah try. If you're going to take the play calling away anyways.
Who would you guys want to see be the next head coach for the Jets? Like you got Mike Vrabel who's still out there. You got Bill Belichick possibly coming back, or it could be an up and coming coordinator like a Ben Johnson, like whoever else you would like.
I think it's got to be an offensive guy. I think the defense is talented enough to get it done with anybody. I think you need to go offense. I think Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Todd Monken's name has started to rise around. People are talking about him going to New York. I'd hate that. I think Vrabel's a defensive guy. I don't think Vrabel's a good fit. Belichick's not doing it for one. I don't think Belichick's coming back to coaching. I also think he's run his course and he's also a defensive guy.
I think
He's
Belichick comes back to coach. I don't know if it's with New York. I think he
if
comes back.
if he comes back to coach, he doesn't come back to coach the rival of the team he coached for 25 years that he already tried coaching and wrote his resignation letter on a napkin 2 minutes into his hiring. Like he's not going to coach the Jets. Come on, man. Like he'll coach
I was
somewhere maybe, but not the Jets.
one guy that I was thinking of that I think would be kind of fun. What if Greg Olson went and became a coach? They took his number one analyst spot away, gave it to Tom Brady. He doesn't have the massive contract anymore. What if he wants to try his hand at coaching? That's an offensive mind. It's a new guy. You'll probably, I would assume, have some kind of offensive turnover, maybe a new quarterback next year for him to try and mold. I think it'd be kind of fun.
I like that idea. I do think though if Greg Olson's going somewhere, he's gonna just gonna go to Carolina. But I do like it sucks that Fox gets like a couple games every week, and Tom Brady gets the big 4 p.m. game of the week, which is always a good game. And Greg Olson always gets stuck with some NFC South, just like Saints Panthers BS. And it's like, I want to listen to this guy talk football because he is so, so good. And I do think he's a really smart mind that could end up making the move to coaching, just like his former teammate Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
All right. Back to start situms. Frosty, who are you sitting at wide receiver?
I'm sitting Lad McConkey this week. Uh, it's the Pat Surtain effect. I mean,
We're just
and
following
we
Pat Surtain on
Yeah,
this
yeah.
segment, aren't
we
we?
are honestly, and so I we talk a lot about Pat Surtain. The Broncos defense as a whole, only 50 receptions to wide receivers, 524 yards, and one touchdown in 5 games. It's not Pat Surtain has been unbelievable. Don't get me wrong. He's I think reclaimed the number one corner spot in the league, but this entire Broncos defense is really, really good. This has probably blossomed into a top five unit in all of football right now, and I don't see Lad McConkey being able to get enough separation and enough opportunities to be able to make it worthwhile.
What you know about Riley Moss, man? Riley Moss got a pick last week.
Oh
Like
my God.
I think the thing with this, especially with this game too, is I think the over under set at like 35 and a half. It's like the lowest over under by like 5 points. Because this game is gonna suck. Let's just be real. It's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be a run heavy game. Even if like I don't think they're gonna air it out in general, but even if they do air it out, Lad's just not gonna be open at all. So I expect it to be like just grind it out, 15 to 10, like just run the ball. J.K. Dobbins gonna have 45 carries, like that kind of game.
I ended up going with Chris Olave, is who I'm sitting. I wanted to go Shaheed because he's been the more productive fantasy receiver, but he's questionable. So as an honorable man, unlike you scum, I did not include him. I went with Olave instead. Simply, yeah, Derek Carr going to be out with the oblique injury. Spencer Rattler is coming in and he's going to start. Uh, Hard to trust wide receiver production with a rookie making his first ever start. It's not even just on Rattler, it's just on that fact alone. Saints already run the ball the most out of any team in the league. Expect that to continue. And they got some good corners out there in Tampa. They don't allow a ton of receiving touchdowns either. So Olave on the bench doing it.
Is it crazy to think that Spencer Rattler, I think, might just come in there and just start chucking it? Like, I don't know why. I just got a gut feeling that Rattler's gonna come out there and just start chucking bombs. Like we're Shaheed 2 touchdown kind of day. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is just a gut feeling, but I don't know.
So I was gonna say, I think I was higher on Spencer Rattler going into the draft and going into this season. I didn't think he was that much lower than like the first round quarterbacks that went, like the Bo Nix, the Michael Penix, those guys. I don't think Rattler is much worse than them. He's much more raw though. So I think we could we could easily see him come in and it'll be a rough game, but I could also see him come in and just the pure talent show shines through and he throws for 350 and three touchdowns.
Yeah, like I was lower on Rattler heading into the year, like into the season, because people were having him as like a first round quarterback. But then he started slipping so, so, so far. And I was then higher on him. I just out of like I just became higher on him through it other process. Like, he was like a second round kind of guy. And the talent is definitely there. I mean, this guy was an elite recruit coming out of high school, like one of the best quarterbacks in his class coming out of high school. I really do think there's untapped talent there. Maybe Clint Kubiak can find it. I don't know. I think there could be a potential for like just a crazy game for Spencer Rattler.
Hey, I like Spencer Rattler. He had a good preseason. I liked him coming in, just like you guys are saying. We're just talking week 6 right now, his first
Yeah, yeah.
start. against a really solid Tampa Bay team, and he's coming into a system where they run the ball the most out of any team in the league. So I think they're going to lean on the run game. Trust me, I am with you guys. Love Rattler in general, but just for the first start, and if it burns me, oh well. I feel confident in my pick and my reasoning for sitting Olave/Shahid.
I do think that they run the ball the most. Number is a little inflated by the first 2 weeks because of the fact that they just like were up so big so early they just ran the clock out. Like Derek Carr these past 2 weeks, like he threw 28 times against KC, then got hurt. He threw 36 times against Atlanta and 25 times against Philly. Like it was the first 2 weeks, I think, is really just what bumped that number up because they just had no need to pass the ball anymore. They had three 25-yard giant touchdowns all the way down the field, and that was it.
Fair enough. I mean, when you have Kamara though with a rookie QB, I still think they're going
Yeah,
to lean on him to some
absolutely.
degree.
Absolutely.
All right, where are we at here? I guess that's it for wide receivers, right? We
Yeah.
are moving on to tight ends. Um, Obviously we got burnt by tight ends last week. I mean, Frosty was burnt on both sides of the coin. So let's start with you, Frosty. Yeah, by point, what is that? Point eight for Firemouth. You
Yeah.
started him last
Oh
week.
no, he was
All
we
right.
since we changed it to top
Oh
12,
right.
he was like tight end 17 or
This
something. He
was one of
wasn't
Right.
the
even close.
best. This was one of the best tight end weeks we've had all year. Like
It
Taylor
was.
Pickman was a tight end 12.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
snuck it in there. I was sweating
Yeah,
that.
like that was a crazy week for tight ends.
All right.
I
But yeah, who you going?
we just finished our Spencer Rattler discourse. I'm starting Jawan Jennings this week. I like Jawan Jennings as the safety blanket for him.
Juwan
I think
Johnson.
Tampa,
Juwan
Johnson.
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 Sorry, Jawan
Johnson.
Johnson. No.
Like that's Brock Purdy's safety blanket. Juwan
Yeah,
Jennings.
yeah, Juwan Johnson, not Juwan Jennings. I like Juwan Johnson as a safety blanket for Spencer Rattler. Rookie QBs love to target tight ends on drag routes just over the middle for short gains. And I think Tampa's going to take a lead pretty early in this game. I think the second half, I think they're going to force Spencer Rattler to throw the ball. And I think Juwan Jennings is just going to get a bunch of targets. He might get 15 yards, but it might be on 8 catches.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 targets for Johnson last week. So we'll see. It's a bit of a riskier pick, I will say, but honestly, with this tight end position, who knows?
Exactly.
It's a shot in the dark.
He's got a touchdown this year.
Hey, that's basically tight end 12 at that point. You just need one touchdown, you're good. I
All right.
I hate that I'm doing this. For the third straight week and the fourth time this year, Kyle Pitts finds himself on one of my lists. Kyle Pitts is my start this week, which basically means if you own Kyle Pitts, sit him at all costs. Because last time I started Kyle Pitts, he had 0 points, but he's playing Carolina. And he finally had a good game last week. He had 8 targets, 7 catches, 88 yards. It was promising. And the big thing I think is he's just like one big play. He gets one big touchdown and he hits. And I think against Carolina, it should hit. And I'm hoping maybe this is just like a pray that Kyle Pitts finally comes to fruition. But he's my start this week because Carolina just is terrible all across the board. And they don't have Shaq Thompson anymore, who would be their typical guy to line up in the middle and cover Kyle Pitts. That is if they finally start lining up Kyle Pitts as a tight end on a wide receiver and line him up against some linebackers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. Honestly, don't even want to provide any analysis to that because everything I say has just been wrong on Kyle Pitts. I'm going back to the Saints Bucks game, but I'm starting the opposite tight end. I'm starting Kate Otten for the Buccaneers. Saints allowed the third most receiving yards to tight ends, and Otten in weeks 3 and 4 had 17 targets combined. Only 3 grabs last week, but he nearly had 15 yards per catch, so that is a good sign as well. Saints are super solid against wide receivers, so could maybe expect a bit more production for Cade Otton for this week. And he was on the field for every single snap last week, 100% snap percentage. And honestly, it's only dipped below 90 once, and that was in week 1. So I know he's going to be on the field. If the wide receivers are a bit locked up, Cade Otton's there, and the production's been up the last 3 weeks. So give me Cade Otton.
I like that a lot, especially when you consider the fact that Marshawn Lattimore really has Mike Evans' numbers in their career. Like he matches up so well against Mike Evans. They hate each other. They hate their guts. Like they hate each other so much. Like we might see a fight this week. I'd love to see that. But so the corners are really good there. And then Paulson Adebo is pretty good as well. Lante Taylor's pretty solid to come in and help with Chris Godwin. I really do expect Kate Otten to be the middle of the field worker, and especially in the red zone, if you don't have Mike Evans available, big target is Kate Otten. Like I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, off to sitting the tight ends where we all sat Pitts last week. It didn't go well. The week before that, uh, me and Frosty sat Conklin, Logan sat Pitts, and it didn't work out.
No, I
So,
started Pitts, but I sat Andrews. They just both went
oh,
0.
right. Man, I always mess up looking at this thing. I always say the wrong thing. Right. No, we actually last week, me and you were pretty good at the sits. It was Frosty who got burnt. Sitting Kelsey. So, who are you going this week, Lover?
This week I'm going with Dalton Kincaid. I mean, to be honest, he doesn't really even have. I don't know if he has a tight end 12 finish this year. Like he probably does because it doesn't take much these days. So he probably has one or two. But he just has not been good this year in general. And it's the same thing with Shakir, Jets defense. They got really good linebackers. I don't see a lot coming available for Kincaid. And the Bills' offense has fallen almost flat on its face these past 2 weeks. Don't see a lot of room for Kincaid to succeed. And yeah, he just really he hasn't broken out the way I expected. He's not playing a ton of snaps as you'd expect. Like he played a lot week one, but since then, dip below 50, dip below 60. Like he's not playing, the 80% snap share you'd more so expect. He's not catching in the red zone, not getting touchdowns, not even getting a ton of targets in general. Like, been a rough year for Kincaid, to be totally honest.
Yeah, I think a lot of people expected a massive, myself included, expected a massive
Yeah.
Kincaid breakout this year. I thought it was coming. He has not looked as explosive. He hasn't been able, defenses are just paying more attention to him now. And he hasn't been able to figure out how to get himself open consistently yet. And he's coming off the field more because of it. And the target share is just not the same.
Yeah, I believe the Jets are top 10 in average fantasy points allowed, receiving yards allowed, and receiving touchdowns allowed to the tight end position as well. So, like you mentioned, Glover, some good backers out there in New York. Frosty, who are you sitting?
I'm sitting Sam Laporta against the Cowboys this
Wow,
week.
wow, the overshown
The
effect.
the DeMarvion overshown effect. No, Sam Laporta hasn't topped 7.3 fantasy points this year in Detroit's 4 games so far. I fully and wholeheartedly expect Detroit to put Jahmyr Gibbs out for a drive, run the ball 10 times to a touchdown, then put David Montgomery out and run the ball 10 more times for another touchdown. I don't know if Jared Goff attempts 20 passes this game. I don't think the volume is going to be there enough for Laporta to be able to get the volume to be a top 12 tight end this week.
Yeah, you're not going to stick Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery in a start sit, because they're going to be a start every week. But
Yeah.
they are smash starts this week. If you have Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, you might just win your week, regardless of anything else that happens to you, because I think they're just going to run all over the Cowboys, and they might both go for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like this is just going to be a slugfest. Like if you have an Amon-Ra, like maybe you dabble in an Amon-Ra, like maybe not a sit, but a temper your expectations kind of weak because of the fact that this is just gonna be a run heavy offense all game long. Again, well, I mean the Cowboys or the no, sorry, the Lions. The Lions will, if they get up early, run the ball, and the Lions have loved to run the ball this year.
I'm gonna go with Dallas Goedert against the Browns. I know, he's been a monster these last couple of weeks, but Cleveland is top 10 in average fantasy points allowed, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns to tight ends. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are going to be back, so Goddard's production could slump back to the first couple of weeks. How he was getting 4 to 5 targets, not doing a ton with them. That's the case for Goddard. Of course, I mean maybe he stays in and is a bigger part of the offense again, but I think with the weapons coming back that and Cleveland being a pretty good team with some good linebackers, Owusu Karamoa is a monster. I said it in the previews at the start of the season. I'm sitting Dallas Goddard.
Yeah, the return of the weapons, JOK. Don't see a lot of room for success for Goddard, anyways.
Yeah, I like that. I think there's only one ball to go around in that offense, and I think he's probably going to be the guy that ends up getting cut out of the offense.
All right, on to the best bets portion where Frosty, we're on the board. We got on the board last week. I had Vikings minus 2.5 in London against the Jets. It hit. Frosty, Packers minus 3 against the Rams. Smashed it. Glover losing an OT, falling. He had Buccaneers plus 2.5, but it was the Falcons and Cardero Hodge getting it done.
He
Uh,
they had it. They had it for OT. The Bucks are gonna win.
all of a sudden, me and Frosty are, I guess, a game behind, a pick behind you. You're sitting at 2-3. We're both at 1-4. Uh, Frosty, you're on the hot streak. We are. So where are you leaning this week? Honestly, taking a look at the whole slate, uh, I was honestly very unsure. I wasn't sure on a lot. So where are you leaning?
I I was going back and forth between three of them. You talked me out of one earlier. You made me unsure. I was just gonna pick straight up Seahawks money line as plus money. I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna go Tampa Bay minus 3.5 against New Orleans. I like that defense against the rookie quarterback. Kamara had a rough week last week. I assume they'll just game plan to force Spencer Rattler to beat them. If he does, he does. It's a rookie quarterback, though. I think you have to play your cards that way. I trust the Tampa defense, and I think the Tampa offense is going to be able to get through this New Orleans defense.
Yeah, I mean Camaro running into Vita Vea, as we've said multiple times in this podcast, it's just never a good idea. Never gonna turn out too well for you.
Well, it was like the Falcons last week. Like we're purposely not running the ball. It
Yeah.
seemed like they were just wanting to pass it all over the place. Bijan didn't get too many touches. So, I mean, the Saints kind of, I don't know, like they might be forced to do the same, but that might not go over well. So, all right, two straight Buccaneers weeks. We'll see if it works out for you. Glover.
I also looked at the Seahawks, but I was looking more so at Seahawks plus 3.5 because I really like the fact that it's over the 3 point line. But I'm not gonna go there. The other one I was considering Ravens Commanders over, even though it's at 51.5. Like it's a high over, but I could have see it hitting at 51.5. But I'm gonna go with Lions minus 3. I don't know why the line is this tight. I think the books are a little overvaluing the Cowboys, and I think they're undervaluing the Lions because I really just the the Ravens are a team that runs their game plan similar to the Lions. They run all over you, and they blew the Lions out. But then in typical Ravens fashion, they blew the lead. The Lions aren't going to blow that lead. The Lions will get up and hold the lead, and I think they're just going to be able to hold on and win that game just by running the ball every single snap.
I will say the only thing that scares me with that is Detroit struggled against the pass.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
If Dallas is down, I could see a backdoor cover with like a minute and a half left after they were down 14 to start the second half.
yeah. That's true. The defenses don't match up well against each other in general on either side.
It's gonna be a real like just like styles clashing. Like
Mhm.
where the Lions are bad, which is defending the pass. The the Cowboys pass the ball pretty well because they're forced to, and they do it at a pretty good clip. And then Cowboys, especially with the injuries, can't really defend the run. And Detroit's obviously the best running team in football, so it's gonna be interesting to see. Just, I mean, how do you guys like the over? It's the biggest line this week, 52.5.
I don't know.
I I did look at it. I think Detroit is going to drain too much clock every time they
Mm.
touch the ball that I don't know if there's going to be enough possessions for the over to hit.
Yeah. The other interesting style clash is the fact that the Cowboys are going to have to pass because they can't run, and the Lions are pretty good at defending their run. So it's like they're really going to have to pass, and they're going to really have to try and take advantage of those weak cornerbacks, the weak cornerback room that the Lions have, and probably grab a few defensive pass interference calls along the way because the Lions just can't stop grabbing. But yeah,
Well, for myself, I was looking at a couple interesting ones. Like Bears are favored against the Jaguars. How do we feel about that? -1.5 for Chicago. You guys like
I think
that?
that's absolutely. I think it could be higher.
Oh
Yeah.
I think
wow.
you're the Jags hater. I think the Bears should beat the Jags for sure.
Bears
Yeah.
offense has been hot too. Caleb
They
Williams has started to look better and better.
That was his best game. Like, it was the Panthers, but that was his best game of the year by far. He looked really, really good, really, really clean. I
That's
could
what I
see
mean.
it.
I want to have pause because it was against the Panthers, and then the week before it was against the Rams.
I will say, but have you not said that the Jags are the worst team in the NFL?
I said it because they were winless, and then they squeaked out a win. They almost
I don't
choked it
care.
away, but
I think they're on the same tier as the Panthers, regardless. And that secondary is burnt toast. DJ Moore should have a field day just running all over that. I think the Bears should win that game pretty easily.
okay, okay. I always look at the lines and just see who's the highest. The Eagles, 9.5 on the Browns. That's a lot of points, fellas. That's a
Yeah,
lot of points.
I wouldn't bet on that line, but the Browns do suck.
I wouldn't bet on it, but I'm not going to disagree with it either. The
Mhm.
Browns are terrible.
Yeah,
They look really bad. The defense could make up for Joe Flacco. It cannot make up for Deshaun Watson.
they should have kept Joe Flacco around. He looks nice and Indy, man. Oh my.
Uh, Chargers favored over the Broncos. I
Don't
thought that
like
was a
that.
bit questioning as well.
I think it's a pickle. I think it's a game you can go either side.
Well, they got it at -3 for the Chargers. They don't have it as a pick 'em.
Yeah, it's a little higher than I would go, but I think it's a pretty close game. I said it's gonna be like 15 to 10. Like it's gonna be a boring game.
So those were a bunch I was considering. Um, like I said, I'm on the fence right now. I came into this like having all these in mind. And I'm just sitting here scrolling through the lines and looking. Honestly, this Texas Patriots 37.5 line is pretty low to me. I think they're accounting for the Nico Collins injury plus just New England.
Yeah.
And with Drake May coming in as well. What do you guys think of that? Drake May in. I guess we talked about it a little bit
We talked
last
about it
week,
last.
but
Me and Nick had the same thought, but I
Frosty,
think you're
what's
gonna have Frosty.
what do you think?
I think this is one of the dumbest decisions that they could possibly make. You're like, I get they don't want to sit him all year. You drafted him this high for a reason. You drafted him number three overall. I get it. He's gonna die. Your
Yeah.
O-line can't block a parked car. Do you think you're gonna do against one of the best pass rushing defenses in football right now? They terrorized Caleb Williams week one. It was week one, I believe, that they played.
I think it was week two.
And
Regardless.
regardless, and the Pats O line is about the same tier as Chicago's O line. They pretty much let in anybody. I think Drake May is going to get hit a lot this game, and I don't agree with their decision to start him.
Yeah, that's sort of the sentiment me and Nick had on the earlier episode this week. It's just like it feels this is the worst possible game you could have picked to throw him into the fire. He's going to get folded like a sandwich. Like he's just gonna be dead. And I get Jacoby Brissett's been terrible, but if you expect Drake May to come in and be able to do anything with that O line and those weapons, you're an idiot. Like
And
I don't like it. I think
let's not pretend they brought Jacoby Brissett there to start and win football games. They
yeah,
brought him there to be a punching bag so Drake May didn't get three
yeah.
concussions in 2 games.
If you took that roster, especially after trading Matt Judon, and we're like, you know, we signed Jacoby Brissett, this team can compete for a playoff spot, you're an idiot. And that was not the thought. You can pretend that was the thought all you want. That was definitely not the thought. Yeah, and going back to the over on that game, I would almost lean the under because 37 and a half is what you said, I think. Honestly, the Texans would have to hit that alone. Like the Patriots might not score. So I think that sort of the thing is the Texans get up like 21-0. They don't score many more points. I could see it hitting the under just because of the fact that it'll be a blowout so early. Texans just run the clock out and the Patriots just can't get anything moving.
Yeah, so New England's O line is allowing the most. They have the best or worst pressure rate, depending on how you look at it. It's 32nd in the league, and the 30th sack rate as well. And then the Texans, on the other hand, the sixth best sack rate from their D line, and then the best blitz success rate as well. So I expect them to send pressure all over the place on these guys.
They don't even
Uh,
need to send pressure. You can rush four and you'll get two in the backfield in 2 seconds.
I'm thinking of the -6.5, but I've already used my best bet on the Texans twice. So And then I could see a world where just like Drake May comes in and wins. Like I don't know what I it feels like a trap to me. Maybe it's just because I'm a scared fan. I don't know if anybody else feels like that, but
I,
I could see the narrative. I'm a narratives guy. I could see it.
I think the fear is, if the Texans come in there and they don't cover a -6.5 spread, you got some issues worried there,
Well,
especially if they lose.
here's the thing. They have literally been like on the line of every cover here like every week. So when I missed them twice, they were like a point or two away in both. And then they got demolished by Minnesota, which it wasn't even close, but they usually hover around what Vegas has them at. Houston hasn't really been putting their foot on anybody as well, but I don't know what I'm gonna go with. Let's go. I don't even know, man. I my brain's all over the place. Let's go Atlanta -6.5 over Carolina. I think it's just fading the Panthers really at this point. I'm not even the biggest Falcons guy right now, but I mean Kirk seems to be getting more comfortable. He's spreading the ball around to everybody, and then just this Carolina defense is one of the worst in the league in pretty much every statistical category that matters. Um, so yeah, well, let's go the Falcons win by a touchdown. A lot of points, but I mean, teams are killing these Panthers.
And the Falcons their offense looks good, especially last week against the Bucks. 509 yards for Kirko Chains. Like, it's looking pretty good for the Falcons.
And I'm
The
sitting
12 and
Chuba
5
Hubbard, so it
Falcons.
yeah, it's oh yeah, you missed that. I think Glover mentioned
Yeah.
you missed the
Would
Falcons
have
propaganda last
would
week.
have loved it. I know you would have loved it in there to talk about the Falcons win there on Sunday. That was Matt or
Oh yeah.
Thursday.
I can't believe this was the week. This was the week that I couldn't sing Kirk O'Chain's praises.
It's worked out perfectly for the
500
Miles.
pass.
You got to trash talk a Bills fan.
Yeah. So it worked out for me. Yeah, 500 yards for Kirk Chains. I don't think he'll need 500 in this game. Hopefully, I mean, if he does, good for me. But I'm kind of parlaying that with the sitting of the Chuba Hubbard. So I guess that works out for me. All right. Well, anything else you guys want to say? Any other lines that were interesting? Anything else that you guys would maybe sprinkle some cash on?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the ones I liked. I really do think Ravens over against the Commanders. Like, I just think it's going to be like 35-37. We should hit the over in that game. So that's the only other one that I'm pretty high on.
Yeah, the other one I was looking at was the Cincinnati and the Giants 47 and a half. I think they could smash that over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Two
Cincy
underperforming defense.
defense, yeah, that's the Cincy defense looks terrible and the offense looks great. Daniel Jones, I hate him. I don't think he's good, but he's looked damn good so far this year. He's got better counting stats than Patrick Mahomes right now.
Actually, that is, I do want to talk about something. I do want to bring something up here. Yeah, you triggered my Patrick Mahomes radar. He is the favorite for MVP right now. I'm just gonna double check to make sure I'm not mistaken on that. But last I checked, he's the large favorite for MVP.
We talked
Who
about it
would
last,
you?
yeah, we talked about it yesterday. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is the favorite. CJ Stroud is second. Lamar Jackson is
Yeah,
third, and I can't quite remember at this juncture who's fourth.
here I'm pulling him up. I think that's ridiculous. Patrick Mahomes has not even been the most valuable player on his own team. Like he's plus 230. Stroud is next at plus 600. Like, I don't get that at all because this defense has been the reason they're winning games. This is one of the worst years Mahomes has had. And I think it's really proving just how how annoying this award has become. Like it's become defaulting to the quarterback on the best team. It's not what it should be. Like Stroud's been good. Lamar's been great again. Jaden Daniels honestly should almost be the favorite. And if we're talking most valuable player, it does typically go to a winning team. Joe Burrow has been the reason the Bengals are in football games because that defense is so terrible, but he won't get it because he's, 1-4. There hasn't been a ton of candidates. I will give the Bookers that credit there. There has not been a ton of candidates, but Patrick Mahomes should not be sniffing the top of this list.
No. To me, I still think it should be Sam Darnold.
I think Sam Darnold's a more deserving candidate than Patrick Mahomes. He's put up better numbers. He's also had a good defense. I don't think he's the favorite. I would go Daniels and Lamar over Darnold in terms of MVP right now, just because that defense in Minnesota has also been amazing. But Mahomes shouldn't there shouldn't be a plus 1,000 difference between Darnold and Mahomes, who have similar numbers and both top like two defenses in the league and are both undefeated. Why is there that big of a difference? Because they're the exact same season so far.
If
Just
you're
doing it
valuing
affected.
if you're valuing winning, I think Sam Darnold has done more to make the Vikings win than Patrick Mahomes has done to make the Chiefs win. And if you're not valuing record, then you get Jaden Daniels, then you get Lamar Jackson, then you
Even
get
if
Joe
you
Burrow.
even if you are valuing record, the Commanders have one loss.
Yeah.
Like Daniels is putting up breaking records. Like they have one
Okay,
loss.
why you guys aren't even talking about CJ Stroud in this conversation at all? Which is he should be the favorite. Are we why is nobody talking about CJ Stroud right now as the favorite?
He
He's
hasn't.
third in the league in passing yards. He's getting sacked the most out of any quarterback in the league. He's leading this team to winning drive games. Talking about valuable. If this guy wasn't on the team, this Texans team is literally 4 plays away from being 0-5, dude. Like he's led 3 game winning drives.
I think part of the
The
reason.
the picks are up a little bit, but he's still thrown like the third least amount in the league. Like the only people who have thrown less than him are Daniels, Mayfield, and Burrow pretty much on Lamar.
Lamar, like those are the guys we're looking at. We're looking at Burrow, Lamar,
Oh,
and
Burrow's
Daniels.
1-4, so you can knock him
Yes, yeah,
out.
yeah, no, agreed. But
Daniels does like
Daniels is four
almost
and one. Daniels has been a better MVP
yeah,
and
but
more valuable quarterback than CJ Stroud has been this year.
yeah, but Daniels isn't gonna win MVP.
No, he won't because he's a rookie, and that's stupid. I think
Exactly.
another part though is CJ Stroud only has two games where he's put up more than one touchdown. He has no games with more than two touchdowns. He's not like taking over the games the same way Lamar did last week or Jane Daniels been doing all season or the way Joe Burrow did last week. He's not taking over a game, if you know what I mean. Like he's just putting
Uh,
up good numbers and he's winning football games.
So who? Okay, okay.
That's sort of my thing is I think Daniels has legit taken that Commanders offense to another stratosphere. And Lamar's winning football games now against good teams, which is getting him, but he's not going to win it because he's back to back. I think it's also the problem is narratives. Lamar won't win it because it's back to back. He'd have to go nuclear. Daniels won't win it because he's a rookie. Allen was the favorite because he was just going to get it because it
And
was his year.
who outplayed him last
Oh
week?
yeah, Allen is not a candidate at all. Allen's been terrible these past 2 weeks. He played two MVP caliber guys and got destroyed and looked like
So
crap.
you're talking about all these narratives. Why not CJ Stroud?
He could be in
He's
there.
a prime can if he starts to look a bit better, which
He
you would
does.
hope would happen, but he's been solid. Like he
He's
hasn't
been
even been
solid. Like
bad.
he has not been
He's been
bad.
really good. He's been
No, no.
good.
That's the thing.
He's
He's
been
not been
great.
bad. But we're looking at MVP here. We're not looking at. He's been a great quarterback winning his team games.
You could
Yeah.
make the argument CJ Stroud hasn't been the most valuable player in his own offense.
Nico Collins has been actually ecstatic. Like
Who's throwing him the ball?
No, I know. And it'll always go to a quarterback more than that. But
yeah,
Nico Collins right now has been more valuable to that team than CJ Stroud has.
Well, I guess we'll see because
actually,
Nico's about to be out for 4 weeks. So
let's give a because I was looking through this because you mentioned quarterbacks. I went to go see how far down we go to get a non-quarterback. Saquon Barkley deserves some love in this conversation. He has been the Eagles' offense, I think, and he right now is below Aaron Rodgers, Caleb Williams. Honestly, behind Geno Smith, I low-key think Geno Smith should be higher. But like we're looking at plus 7,500 for Saquon Barkley. Like Saquon's been pretty electric this year. But yeah,
I get what you're saying, but it's not gonna happen.
no, yeah, I know. It's and again, that's why the award is flawed. It truly is. If you're the best quarterback on the best team, you probably got it, unless someone has an exceptional year and on a
Yeah.
team that doesn't win as much.
And that's the other thing for Stroud. They're most likely going to be 5-1 heading into the at the start of the third of the season. So, um, yeah, the Texans are going to have a good record no matter say what you will about their wins. They're going to have a good record at
Oh
come
yeah.
the end of the year because the
The
division sucks.
the
And
only the only problem is their one loss. Sam Darnold cooked them so badly, and Stroud looked terrible.
It wasn't okay. Yes, Darnold, if you take away, Darnold had five passing touchdowns in that game,
I know.
but it's not like Darnold isn't taking over these games. Like
No,
it's,
he's
I
not.
want to cool it on Sam Darnold just a little bit. Like he he has some of the most passing touches in the league, but it's because of that game. His completion percentage is one of the lowest out of all these guys, out of basically the top 20, and he's thrown the least amount of balls. Like Stroud has thrown 177 attempts and has nearly a 70% completion percentage. Darnold has thrown 137 attempts and is down near at 63%. And I mean, Daniels has only thrown 130 attempts as well, by the way. So
Yeah, Daniel's getting
just
done with his legs. He's getting done with his legs.
for sure, that's another thing. I just said that because he was right there, but like these, Darnold isn't throwing the ball as he has like 40 less attempts than all these top guys. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, I mean, if again, you take away the narrative of everything, you take away the stigma around who gets this award. If I had to vote today, I'd vote Jaden Daniels. That would be my vote. I don't care if he's a rookie. He's been the most valuable player to his team because his defense sucks ass. His defense is terrible. And the offense was terrible last year when they didn't even add many pieces. They actually lost pieces. And he took it in, and it's now one of the best offenses in the league. He looks electric.
I'd give it to Stroud, no bias.
Man, I give it to Lamar.
I think I wish Geno Smith didn't get all of his touchdowns at the goal line vultured by Kenneth Walker because this guy's touchdown to interception ratio is 5-4.
Yeah, it's
It
bad.
Yeah,
looks terrible. But he's also where is he? Where is he in completion percentage? He's
he's been
fourth in
chucking
completion
the ball.
percentage. He's number one in yards. He's number one in completions, number one in attempts, number one in yards per game.
Yeah,
Like he's been unreal so far.
fourth,
He's just
fourth
and
in,
he's the second most sacked quarterback in football, only behind Deshaun Watson.
fourth in complete percentage is pretty crazy when you consider how many times he throws the ball. I mean,
He's
he's already got 3 games this year with over 40 attempts.
he's basically at 200 attempts. He's at 199
Yeah,
passing attempts.
he had
In
56 against Detroit.
like what are we doing now?
And I think the thing is the other thing I think that is almost more important than who's the favorite right now is there shouldn't be a heavy favorite.
There should.
I think that's honestly the bigger debate I or a bigger point I want to get across with Mahomes is sure he's 5-0, you can throw him in the conversation, but it should be a conversation. It should be a plus 400 difference between one and two. I mean, Kirk Cousins had a rough first couple of weeks, but if he keeps going like he did, Kirk Cousins gets himself in that conversation if the Falcons stay hot. This conversation is wide open, and it shouldn't be a one horse race in the betting odds right now.
I do want to throw Baker Mayfield's hat in the ring
Yeah,
too because he's
yeah,
looked really good. I wish they didn't take the ball out of his hands against Atlanta
yeah.
because
That
if
was
Baker
dumb.
Mayfield's allowed to keep throwing the ball there, I think I think the Bucks win that game. I was very conflicted. I was very conflicted because I want the Falcons to do good because I want to be right at 12-5, but I also want Baker to be good.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of candidates this year that aren't getting the love they deserve, but I also think that right now there's probably 10 guys you could rip off, and I'd be like, you know what? He's a case.
Lots of football left, fellas.
Oh
And
yeah.
hey, this was going to be a short episode, and then
And
we
but you were
got into
right.
this, but I think that'll do it from us, right? It's a little MVP check-in right there, basically at the third of the season. So lots of football to go. We'll see how it shakes out. Obviously, Texans could go on a 10-game losing streak. The Vikings could go on a 10-game losing streak. Who knows, right? So that is it from us, Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, Andrew Foster here, keeping you up to date, all things NFL. Subscribe if you want to see more of these type of videos. We're pumping out 2 a week, and there's gonna be a bit more coming out. I think we want to do some draft stuff here coming up next week. Maybe we'll do a 3-person mock draft where we'll each kind of rotate something like that. Maybe a big board. I don't know. Maybe keep your eyes out on the Hive Podcast Network. Regardless, thanks for watching. We appreciate it, and keep it buzzing.